Hello and welcome to Horror Rewind. This is Kelly Florence.
And I'm Meg Hofdahl.
And today we're talking about The Invisible Man. This movie came out last weekend and it was 89% fresh when we went to see it. It's written and directed by Leigh Whannell. And Meg, I don't know if this is hyperbolic of me to say, but it changed my life.
No, that's not over the top at all. I mean, that's so unlike you.
Okay, so this is going to be a spoiler-filled review, just so you know. If you haven't seen this movie, you need to run out and see it immediately. It's amazing, and we're going to be gushing a bit about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything that I expected and more. And I don't know, you get to this age where maybe I'm getting cynical, but I feel like it's harder and harder for me to like feel those physical feelings of falling in love with a movie, and it happened. Like, I felt everything I needed to feel.
We were both physically and emotionally reacting throughout the entire movie. Afterwards, we both said our necks were sore because we were literally on the edges of our seats, and I was jumping. And it takes a lot to make me jump during a movie. I'm not like a jump scare person. I mean, sometimes it gets me, but this movie, I was physically putting my hand over my mouth, and I can't remember doing that since Hereditary.
Yeah, it's very different than Hereditary, I would say, in a lot of ways, but it reminds me of that movie-going experience where I was just like, oh my God. It is just masterfully directed. The way that the camera is used to elicit scares is done in such a way, it actually kind of reminded me of like the way Hitchcock moves the camera and really lingers on sort of objects and not people. I don't know, that in itself was a masterclass.
And something I noticed, and it purposefully done, was just how much anticipation and fear was built in empty space, because we know it's called The Invisible Man, and even before we know that he is invisible and stalking her, we're getting to see these empty spaces, and it's terrifying because it's what is lingering there, what could be lingering there.
Yeah, it really plays upon what we already know coming in. When it was written, they obviously are taking the Universal monster and sort of turning it into a whole new monster, which at the same time, it's sort of going back to the oldest story in the book, which is an abusive husband and man against woman, and a man feeling like he has control over a woman. And I mean, what's more prolific in literature, in old literature, and in movies. When I was watching it, I was even thinking like someone like my mom who doesn't like supernatural movies. I felt like she would like it because it kind of has that domestic thriller feel.
And it's not really even supernatural because it's based in science. Speaking of Gothic literature, he's a man of science, and she's a woman who's being accused of being hysterical. She's being gaslit, and she's right, as always.
Yeah, I mean, there are scenes where even the well-meaning character James is telling her, like, don't let him haunt you, as though it's her choice, in giving women some sort of volition that they don't even have, yet stopping them from having the actual volition that they need. And her sister doesn't believe her, and you kind of hope that the sort of female sisterhood is going to, like, spring into action and help, but it actually never does. And I think the scene when the sister is killed is obviously one that will stick with me for a long time.
So shocking. And the one thing that I said to Meg when we got out of the theater is there's a couple of places where it's just brilliantly written, because you expect backstory or build up. And I know some movies build up that backstory too much and don't get to it, but this story started in the middle, which is she opens her eyes in bed in the middle of the night and she's going to escape this abusive husband. And we don't need to get half an hour of seeing him being abusive. We don't need all this backstory and seeing her prepare. We see her that night sneak out, and it is terrifying and beautiful. There's zero dialogue. and it works. And then again, like you said with the sister in the restaurant, we think we're going to get this big scene between the two of them of her trying to convince her sister to believe her. Instead, her sister is killed, and we in the theater reacted huge.
And then, yeah, it was a huge reaction, which was fun. And then also just watching Elizabeth Moss's acting in that moment when she's, like, trying to, like, knit together what just happened while the audience is trying to figure out what just happened. And it was just, like, this moment of brilliance that makes me, you know, point to why horror is the best genre in the world because of moments like that. And yeah, there's actually a lot of great scenes where there's no dialogue. There's a lot of action scenes. You're not going to be bored. Everything just builds up, and the tension. Yeah, it's gonna make your neck hurt.
I love this one detail. We care for James and his daughter, and when she gets this money coming from her quote unquote dead husband, we see the first thing she does is things for that family, and she sets up this college fund for this girl. And it is so selfless and giving and loving that when there's that threat of the money being taken away, we actually feel for her on behalf of the other people. And so it's not like a selfish thing. It's like, oh, she doesn't get the money. No, she was doing good things with it or going to do good things. And this pregnancy angle and the brother working with him, like it added this other layer of absolute horror and terror, and there's nobody I can go to save me.
Yeah, I mean, at one point the brother says, like, we'll be watching you. Even when she's in, you would like to think that you could at least be safe in this mental institution where there's, you know, doors and gates, but instead she feels even more, she wants to be isolated, but she even feels more scrutinized. This idea of that everything's taken away from her, and then just like an abusive partner, he wants to sort of strip her down to nothingness, and then he wants to say, okay, now you can come back to me and everything will be fine. How did you feel about watching it?
Yeah, so we're going to get personal. I was in an abusive relationship for a while, and it is absolutely 100%. I think they nailed that feeling of isolation, cutting you off from your friends, from your family, convincing you that you're the problem, convincing you that you have to be with them because, you know, you're making them better. It's manipulation 101. They turn it around so everything is your fault. And I spoke to someone recently who said, you know, you take that experience and it doesn't have to define you. It doesn't have to be the thing that you go back to and feel weak from. You should feel powerful from it and learn from it and grow from it and own it and say, you didn't defeat me. I came out stronger, so I'm unbreakable.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. And I feel like this movie, obviously she's like dealing with this sort of outward bad guy, the Invisible Man, but then obviously the whole movie's watching her grow and get to that point at the end of the film when she's in her red lipstick and her heels, and she takes matters into her own hands, and she doesn't wait for a man to solve her problems for her. She does it herself.
No man took away the climax in this movie. Like, she got to have her own ending. And speaking of the fight scenes, like, they are literally fighting an invisible man, and it completely works. I don't know what the CGI or how they shot it. We'll probably find out in the coming days. There'll be some YouTube things up, but holy crap, it was so well done, and I felt it.
Yeah, and, you know, and that's the thing is, and that's masterful storytelling is, like, I don't like action sequences. Like, I usually get bored if people are, like, fighting. But in this situation, oh, my gosh. And the way they did it, and you're just watching with fascination, and you care so much. They establish, even though, you know, like, in the beginning, there's no dialogue. All we know is she's scared of this man. And then when she gets in the car and he comes running down the hill and he grabs her through the window, that's all you need to know about him. That's all you need to know about her. And then as we go along, we see her relationship with James and with Sydney. Having that character development in that short of time, I cared so much.
Absolutely. And at the same time, like, they balanced this terror and horror and this visceral reaction with character. And that's, they don't always go together, but when he's taking photos of her and she's sleeping, and she's sleeping with that daughter, with James's daughter, how, like, the violation, and on any level, whether it was an actual person, a ghost, or, you know, an invisible man, it was so terrifying. And she tries to pick up the sheet and he's standing on it. I don't even remember what happened because I was so scared and everyone was jumping and screaming, but somehow she gets thrown into the dresser maybe and screams for James, and my heart was pounding.
Yeah, it was such a fun movie-going experience because everybody was just right there with us. And I remember that scene, everybody was screaming. And when the sister died, like, the woman behind us, I think, was trying to, like, verbally figure out what had happened and was, like, repeating it several times. Which, like, we all have our ways of, like, processing information, but it was really kind of funny. And, you know, I get crabby about going to movie theaters and, like, experiences of people, like, chewing too loudly, but that was really fun.
No, it actually worked in this situation because I feel like we were in it together and nobody was, you know, doing anything for distraction. It was honest, like, gut reactions. So I loved it. She is, you know, she's found out she's pregnant now. She's in the mental institution. She steals a pen. We don't know the purpose yet. I thought maybe to, you know, pick a lock or something. Who knows? But she knows how important a baby is to Adrian. And she said, I'll kill myself before you get me or this baby back. It was so powerful. And then I think she's saying F you, and she's just repeatedly stabbing him. I think at that point, the woman behind us was like, get him, girl.
Yeah. She's like, get him. Yeah. And I mean, this knowledge of that, now she knows. Now she understands who he is. She's got the perspective. She's come out. She's fresh faced now. Okay, now I know this guy is all manipulation, and all he cares about is control over me. And so if I go to commit suicide, that's not what he wants. He wants, you know, 100% control. And she's right, and that, of course, makes him come. And then she's got that pen hidden, and she stabs him, and it's lovely. It's just lovely.
I love how this whole end sequence, it's pouring rain and his suit is malfunctioning and we're getting glimpses of him, and he keeps fighting cop after cop, security guard after security guard, no holds barred. Like, he's out for blood and she's out to survive, and she knows that she's got, you know, one up him because he doesn't want to kill her, and she's hidden the other suit. There was another suit. And, oh, Meg, there needs to be a sequel called The Invisible Woman. And if there isn't, they're morons.
They are morons. Did you notice the little jigsaw Easter egg in the raining scene?
Yes, painted on the wall. And then when she's in the hospital and the guy is bandaged and you only see his eyes, that little callback to the original.
Yeah, that was really cool. So I appreciate little things like that. But what a well-acted and well-written film where everything comes back around. Every little thing, even not the, what do you call it? Not fire hydrant. What do you call that?
Fire extinguisher.
Yeah, like fire extinguisher comes back around. Pepper spray comes back around. Just a very masterfully written script. And the direction, oh my God, not only with those action scenes, but with those quiet scenes of silence. I mean, when she's looking at the chair to see if it's, like, depressed, you know, on the cushion, like, holy shit.
I know. So well done. And there's, another thing with the writing, we don't need to see a dog get abused or die. They were able to show us what a terrible person he was by her just removing his shock collar. And then we know, oh, this guy's a total jerk because that's not her idea. This was her husband's idea. Thank you. A nice way to give us, that sympathy for the animal, but we didn't have to see a dog die or get abused in order to feel that.
I know. I've seen so many horror movies that I was like worried. I was like, oh no, in the back of my mind when I see that dog in a horror movie, and then like she has to leave and she can't take him with her, and I'm like, oh God. But instead they just showed, look, he's an asshole. Yeah, we don't need to go there. Just like they didn't need to actually show him abusing her pre her leaving, which would have been extremely difficult to watch. And obviously we see him physically abuse her as the Invisible Man, but it's done in a way that we don't have to take her power away.
Right. And another thing I was talking about, the feeling violated when he's taking photos of her, also to find out that he switched out her birth control, that feels so violating. It's like, the equivalent of rape if you're taking off a condom without consent or whatever. And it's just an icky, sinking, gross feeling. And she did not want to have a baby with this man. And so I wondered if they were going to tackle that deeper subject in this film, and they didn't. But I think it'll be interesting to see what direction they go in the next one.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, obviously, like I was saying before, this all like goes back to the heart of the thing of there are true monsters like this. And people listening to what we're saying right now might even know a man like this who wants to control every aspect of a woman down to her birth control. And it's sad and scary. And I think like what better way to like make the Invisible Man a bad guy instead of like he just wants jewels or something,
So speaking of, if you're listening and you know somebody like this or you're in a relationship like this, know that you're not alone. Know that it's not your fault. Know that you can absolutely get out, get away, do it safely, of course, and know that you have options and that this is not the life you deserve. Nobody deserves that life. And so you can change it. We believe in you, and reach out.
And Kelly knows that firsthand, and ask for help. And if you don't have someone in your life to help you, there are phone numbers that you can call and like people, complete strangers who will help you.
What else do you want to say about The Invisible Man besides that it was amazing?
I want to say that James is my new boyfriend, and he's gorgeous and beautiful. And I love that he's like a single father working, and he's like letting this, I think, woman he barely knows stay at his house to like get through this so she feels safe. And his body, oh my God, his butt.
Yeah, no, he's totally cute. And I also love that it's implied that they probably should be together, but he didn't try anything, and nothing was like explicit. It was all just subtext, and I love that. He was a perfect gentleman, and he was there to help her. And he didn't come in and save the day, though, but he was there for her.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously showed a little bit of disbelief there, which I think is understandable in the situation. And, obviously makes sense. But yeah, he was there to help. And that at one point when he tells the brother, like, be respectful to her, like that. As a woman, I like that. I really like that. And yeah, he was nice eye candy. If you need some eye candy at the movies.
Oh, so good. Now, one of the most terrifying sequences, and it's this slow buildup. We think that she and James's daughter are about to eat cake and watch a movie, and we think we're about to see this scene of like some girl time bonding, and then maybe something creepy will happen to them. They cut out that middle bit, got straight to the action. The Invisible Man hits the girl. They leave, and then we have this sequence where she starts calling his phone number. His cell phone is buzzing above her, and then one of the most terrifying jump scares in movie history. But before we get to that, do you have anything to say about the daughter scene or the cell phone?
Yeah, I mean, I reacted to him hitting that little girl like as though, I mean, as extremely as anything in that movie. Like, I was like, what a jump scare, because you're not expecting it at all. And again, they're playing upon what we know about films, and we feel like there's going to be like a girl night scene, so we are sort of programmed from watching so many movies, and obviously Leigh Whannell knows that.
Oh, brilliant. And also, like she puts down the coffee grounds, and we think we're going to see the footsteps in the coffee grounds. Like, I was just expecting that, and this will be a cool effect. Nope. They didn't do that either. She calls his freaking cell phone, and when she's in the attic, she looks down, and we see the shot looking up at her. There's nothing there. But guess the fuck what? She pours that paint, and he's revealed, and I audibly screamed.
It takes a lot for me to like say anything in the theater. Like, I'm a very quiet movie watcher, I would usually say. And you and I both were like uttering many utterances.
Like, wow. And then he leaves the trail of paint and the water's running, but there's paint in it, so you know he's invisible again. And this fight sequence, holy shit, and she's hitting plates against his head. Like, I wanted to like punch at the screen with her. Like, I felt like that.
Yes. And I mean, and then you just distill it down to this is a man like beating up a woman, and she's trying to defend herself. She can't even see the fucker. Like, there were so many layers. It's everything I ever wanted in a horror movie.
So that reminds me, my mom always used to tell me that her grandpa, so my great grandpa, lived with them when she was a kid, and he was going senile, as they would call it then, but he would watch wrestling and believe it was real, and he would throw punches in the air. So maybe I've inherited that from him. I'm just feeling it very strongly.
Or you're going senile.
Whichever, as long as I get to see the Invisible Man again, I don't care.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes.
Should we rank it, Meg? I mean, I could just keep going, but should we rank it? What should our scale be? I'm going to just throw out some things for possibilities. The cans of pepper spray, the cans of paint, the gold pen. I want something that's powerful in her.
I think at the end.
Yeah.
What about?
She chose the steak. He gives her those choices. She says sushi, chicken, or steak, and she picks the steak.
Yeah.
Because she's out for blood.
Yeah, exactly. So how many steaks? How many medium rare steaks? Well, obviously 10.
10 out of 10 all the way. This movie is perfection. And if you haven't seen it and you've listened to this whole thing, it's fine. I can't even build it up. I can't even spoil anything for you because it will make you react.
Yeah, if you want to feel something, if you want your heart to race, go to this movie.
Thank God for horror, and thank God for the Invisible Man.
I know, and thank God what you said about Lee Winnell, that quote the other day. Didn't you say he was the one who said some people just do horror to get into the business, but to him, wasn't that him? Oh, that was Guillermo del Toro. Well, anyway, but that quote of but to him it's a cathedral, and that's how I felt watching this movie. Was this is filmmaking at its absolute finest. Whatever genre you want to call it.
Exactly, and people who are saying elevated horror, no, this is horror, and get used to it.
Yeah, it's the same horror that's been around forever.
It's the new normal, and we can't wait for more. So until next time, we'll see you in the horror section.